Adult Solutions. Add-on desires.
Hello and welcome to Adult Solutions. Today we'll discuss the first chapter in 9th Neet Foundation, that is the cell. Now let us look into how this cell looks like, what is the structure of the cell, what are the different functions that are performed by the cell. The study of cell is called as cytology. Now cyto refers to the cell. So and logy is nothing but the study. So cytology is the study of the cell, and the father of cytology is C.P. Swanson. He is considered as the father of cytology. Now, cell is said to be the structural and functional unit of living organisms. Now, why is it called as a structural unit? Is because the human body, or for that matter any body of the organisms, is made up of cells. Hence it is called as the structural unit of living organisms, and functional unit because all the reactions that take place inside the body occur inside the cell. Hence it is called as a functional unit of the body. Hence the cell is said to be the structural and the functional unit of living organisms. Now this is what a typical cell looks like from the inside. Usually it is surrounded by a membrane in the case of animals, whereas in the case of plants the cell membrane will be surrounded by the cell wall. So the cell surrounded by the plasma membrane, inside it consists of a fluid which is called as protoplasm. Inside the protoplasm there are various cell organelles present. Each of this cell organelle will perform a specific function, and the most important cell organelle out of them is the nucleus, which consists of the DNA responsible for maintaining the characteristics of humans. Also it is responsible for various or controlling the metabolic reactions. So cell, which is surrounded by a plasma membrane, consists of a fluid called protoplasm. Inside the protoplasm various cell organelles are present. Each of these cell organelle will be performing a particular function. Now cell is called as a structural and functional unit of life, as we have seen. So why is it called that? Because all the living organisms are composed of one or more cells. Now when you look into any of the living organisms, each of them will have at least one cell. Hence it is called as a structural and functional unit. Now if it is a multicellular organism, then the work will be divided into different cells. Whereas if it is a unicellular organism which consists of a single cell, all the functions will be performed by that particular cell. All these cells have similar basic structure. Any cell when you look into it, either it could be a plant cell or an animal cell, the basic structure will be same for all the types of cells. Though there might be some organelles which might be present in the plant cell which might not be present in the animal cell, but the basic structure will be same for all the different types of cells. The similar cell organelles of different cells will perform the same function. Let us look into an example over here. Let us say that one cell, a plant cell which is consisting of a mitochondria. Mitochondria is a type of cell organelle. Let us consider this is a plant cell containing mitochondria, and this is an animal cell which is also containing the mitochondria. So both of these mitochondria of the plant cell and the animal cell are having the same function, that is, it is responsible for synthesis of energy. So either it could be a mitochondria present in the plant cell, or it is a mitochondria present in the animal cell. It will be having same function, that is synthesis of energy. The cell was first discovered by a scientist called Robert Hooke in 1665. Now Robert Hooke, he has first observed the cell in the cork. So he has observed the cork of oak tree. He has observed the cork of oak tree, and he has seen that inside the cork the arrangement of cell is in the form of monasteries. it was in this way. He has seen that the arrangement of cells was in the form of monasteries. Hence, he has named the cell as cellula. Cellula means little rooms. So, out of that, the term cell came out. So, the first cell was discovered by Robert Hooke in the cork of oak tree, in which he has seen that the arrangement of these cells are in the form of monasteries, and hence he called them as cellula. Cellula means it is little rooms. So this structure of cell was first observed by him in a microscope, but the detailed structure came later on. So after the discovery of the cell, Robert Hooke has written a book called Micrographia. In that book Micrographia, he has mentioned that how he has observed the cell in the corks of the oak tree and how the arrangement of the cell was, and hence from there he has given the name cellula. All of these were mentioned in the book of written by Robert Hooke called as Micrographia. Micro means small. So hence the Micrographia, which was talking about the minute bodies. Later on, Antony van Leeuwenhoek, he has discovered a microscope. So that microscope could help in visualizing the internal structure of the cell. The microscope was made by Antony van Leeuwenhoek himself. So the first microscope was also made by Leeuwenhoek only. So he has observed different types of cells. So what he has done, he has taken the tooth scrapings of his own teeth and he tried to observe the cells in the electron microscope. Nehemiah Grew then after observing the structure of cell has said that the cell is the unit of the structure of organisms. That means the whole of the organism is made up of these minute structures which are called as cells. So whole of the human body is made up of cells. Later on, the electron microscope, which could zoom in into even the structure of the cell organelles, was discovered by Knoll and Ruska. So Knoll and Ruska discovered the electron microscope, after which the study of cell became more easy. They could observe what is the structure of the membrane which is covering the cell, what is the structure of cell wall, the structure of cell organelles which are present inside the cell, and the various components which are present in the cytoplasm. All could be studied with the help of the electron microscope, which was discovered by Knoll and Ruska. After various scientists have observed the structure of cell, two scientists, that is Schleiden and Schwann, they have proposed a cell theory. Now Schleiden was a zoologist who observed the animal cell, and Schwann was a botanist who has observed the plant cell. Now both of them were doing research at the same time, and hence they both have given their statements also at the same time, in which Schleiden has said that all the animals are made up of structures called cell, and Schwann, he has said that all the plants are made up of structures which are called as cells. So based upon this, cell theory was proposed by Schleiden and Schwann. That cell theory was later on modified by a scientist called Rudolf Virchow. So the modified cell theory, which has given by Rudolf Virchow, states that all the living beings, it could be either plants, animals or microorganisms, all of them are made up of cells. Then cell is the structural and functional unit of life. As I have said previously, that structural because it is making up the whole organism, and functional because all the metabolic reactions take place inside the cell. Hence it is said to be a structural and functional unit of life. Then the third statement which was given by the cell theory states that new cells come from pre-existing cells. Now how this happens is, the cell which is present previously will undergo division and it results in the formation of two different cells. So these are the two new cells which are formed, and these two cells are formed from the pre-existing cell. So the first statement of cell theory is that all the living organisms, plants, animals and microorganisms are made up of cells. The second statement is cell is the structural and functional unit of life. Structural because it is making up the whole organism, and functional because most of the reactions take place inside the cell. And the third statement is the cells arise from pre-existing cells, or the cells will divide to give you the new cells. So these new cells are arising from the pre-existing cells. These are the three statements of cell theory which were given by Schleiden, Schwann, and that was modified by Rudolf Virchow. Now, how could we predict the size of the cell? Now, the size of the cell will be different based upon the different cells. The human cell could be having a different size, plant cells could be having a different size, the cells in the microorganisms could be having a different size. So, based upon the type of the cell, the size of the cells also vary. Usually, in humans, the size of the cell is 20 to 30 micrometers. Now, the largest cell in the case of animals is the egg of an ostrich, which is around 15 centimeters in diameter. Whereas in the case of plants, the largest cell is acetabularia. Acetabularia, it ranges from around 6 to 10 centimeters, and this acetabularia is nothing but the green algae. Algae are a type of plants. So the largest cell in the case of animals is the ostrich egg, which is 15 centimeters, and in the case of plants it is acetabularia, which is around 6 to 10 centimeters. Now the longest cell is the nerve cell in the humans. Now nerve cell is involved in the conduction, that is transferring the information from your sense organs to the brain or from the brain to the sense organs. So the longest cell is nerve cell. It could be around 1 meter also. And in the case of plants, the longest cell is the hemp fiber. Now fibers are nothing but they are type of phloem. Phloem is a tissue which is involved in conduction of food in the plants. So in the plants, hemp fiber is the longest cell. The smallest cell is PPLO, that is pleuropneumonia like organisms. Example of that is mycoplasma. Now mycoplasma, the cell size of mycoplasma is around in nanometers. Nanometers is nothing but it is 10 to the power of minus 9. That means 1 meter, if you are dividing 9 times, what value you get, that will be the size of the mycoplasma. So usually the mycoplasma, the size of mycoplasma is 0.1 nanometers to 0.5 nanometers, which is smaller than that of the human cell. Next is the shape of the cell. Now based upon the function the cell is performing, the shape of the cell will be varying. There are different types of cells which are available based upon their shape. The first one could be elongated. Elongated is the nerve fibers. Here is the example of a nerve fiber. This is what a nerve fiber look like. This whole nerve fiber is a single cell. It is having an elongated structure. Now, it could be either discoidal or saucer shaped like that of an RBC. So, it is the structure of RBC. It is like this. So, it could be discoidal shape like that of an RBC, or it could be spindle shape like that of a muscle cell. So, muscle cells, these are the smooth muscle cells, hence it is spindle shaped like this. Then it could be spherical as eggs. Spherical, as we know, it is just a round shape. So most of the egg cells like the ovum, they are oval or spindle shaped, spherical in shape. Then it could be branched like the pigment cells of the skin. Then it could be slipper shaped like that of a paramecium. So the structure of paramecium is like this. So paramecium, it is slipper shaped. This is also a single cell, slipper shaped. Then cuboidal, it could be the germ cells of the gonads. and then it could be polygonal like that of the liver cells. Polygonal means they are having many different sides. Now, based upon the number of cells which are present in an organism, all the organisms are divided into two types, that is unicellular organisms and multicellular organisms. Uni means one and cellular means containing the cell. So, unicellular organisms are those organisms which consist of a single cell. We have an example for that, that is amoeba, paramecium. There are many bacteria, euglena, plasmodium, plasmodium is a malarial parasite, and chlamydomonas. Amoeba, the structure of amoeba is like this. It does not have a specific structure. Nucleus is present inside. So this is a single cell. So this is the structure of amoeba, and the structure of paramecium. This is the structure of paramecium, consists of nucleus, and the whole body is covered by hair-like structure called as cilia. So this is the structure of a paramecium. Then next, euglena. It consists of a single flagella and then a nucleus. So this is the structure of euglena. All these what I have drawn, the amoeba, the paramecium or euglena, all these are examples of single cells. Here in them, the single cell will perform whole of the functions. Next comes multicellular organisms. Multi stands for many and cellular stands for cells. So multicellular organisms are those organisms which consist of many cells or more than one cell. The best example that could be given is plants and human beings. They are multicellular organisms consisting of many different types of cells. Now, based upon the type of cell, the organisms are again divided into prokaryotic and eukaryotic organisms. The previous classification that we have seen was based upon the number of cells present in the organisms. So based on the number, we have classified them into unicellular organisms and multicellular organisms. But based upon the components present inside the cell, the organisms are again divided into prokaryotic and eukaryotic organisms. Now, karyon here stands for nucleus. Now, U stands for true. So, eukaryotic organisms are those organisms which consist of a true nucleus or complete nucleus is present in them, whereas prokaryotic organisms are those organisms which do not consist of a complete nucleus. Now, in the nucleus here, it means that proper nuclear membrane is not present in the prokaryotic organisms, whereas in the eukaryotic organisms, proper nuclear membrane is present. So based on the presence or absence of this nucleus or the nuclear envelope, the organisms have been divided into prokaryotic and eukaryotic organisms. Now let us look into their properties. So prokaryotic organisms, as we have seen, prokaryotes is nothing but we are dividing based upon the characteristic of the nucleus. So in prokaryotic organisms, proper nuclear membrane or nuclear envelope will not be present, and in the nucleus, inside the nucleus there is a structure called nucleolus. So that structure is also absent in the case of prokaryotic organisms, whereas in eukaryotic organisms a proper nuclear envelope which consists of nucleus will be present in the eukaryotic organisms. Next comes mitosis. Now, since a proper nucleus is not present in the prokaryotic organisms, mitosis does not take place, whereas the mitosis takes place in the case of eukaryotic organisms. Next comes the DNA arrangement. Now, let me show you how the nucleus will be present. With that you can understand better. Say for example, this is the nucleus present inside the cell. Inside the nucleus there is a darkly stained structure which is called as the nucleolus, and the DNA is present in the form of thread-like structure called chromatin. Now, chromatin consists of DNA. That is, when you zoom into the structure of chromatin, you can observe this structure of DNA. Now, DNA inside consists of genes. Genes are responsible for various characteristics. So, when you condense this DNA, it results in the formation of this chromatin-like structure. That is a thread-like structure. When you zoom into this chromatin, you can see this structure of DNA. Normally, if this is the structure of a eukaryotic nucleus. So, if there is a proper nuclear membrane, then these structures will be present inside it. But since the prokaryotic organisms are not containing this proper nuclear membrane, they are not even having the arrangement like this. Nucleolus is also absent in them, and this chromatin, instead of being present as a thread-like structure, it is just present as a, there is no membrane. In the cell, it is just present as a single closed loop. So, DNA in the case of prokaryotic organisms is present like this closed loop. Now, this is called as the plasmid, or it is called as the chromatid. And when this DNA is present, the DNA will be binding on a protein which is called as histone. For example, histones are present like this. There is a combination of 8 histone proteins. Around those 8 histone proteins, the DNA will be binding so that it could condense and form this structure of chromatin. But since chromatin is not present, hence histone proteins are also not present in the case of prokaryotes. So, when we look into the DNA arrangement of prokaryotes, there is no chromatin present like a thread-like structure. It is present just as a single loop, which is called as a plasmid or a chromatid. Whereas in the case of eukaryotic cells, we are having multiple chromatids, and this chromatin material is surrounded around proteins which are called as histones. So, histone proteins are also present in the prokaryotic cells.
Add-on solutions. Add-on